This morning's reading is from Matthew chapter 9, starting at 27. As Jesus went on from there, 2 blind men followed him, calling out, "Have mercy on us, Son of David." When he had gone indoors, the blind men came to him, and he asked them, "Do you believe that I am able to do this?" "Yes, Lord," they replied. Then he touched their eyes and said, "According to your faith, let it be done to you." And their sight was restored. Jesus warned them sternly, "See that no one knows about this." But they went out and spread the news about him all over that region. While they were going out, a man who was demon-possessed and could not talk was brought to Jesus. And when the demon was driven out, the man who had been mute spoke. The crowd was amazed and said, "Nothing like this has ever been seen in Israel." But the Pharisees said, "It is by the prince of demons that he drives out demons."
Morning, everybody. So, we are continuing our journey through Matthew. I don't know about you, I'm enjoying this journey through the Gospel of Matthew. And even though I've read it so many times before, each time you can get something different that God is sharing with us, isn't there, as we go on this journey. So today, we're walking along, as Jesus is walking along, and we have the 2 blind men who are following. And in this passage, I think we're shown 2 radically different responses to what is happening as we walk along and hear what God is doing. And the reason I think those responses are different is they come from different hearts in the people. And we're going to look at that a little bit as we journey along today. So throughout chapter 9, as we've gone through this Gospel of Matthew, we've seen different people interacting with Jesus. And the one thing that I can see that actually unites all of the different people we've been hearing about, reading about and journeying with, one thing that unites them is faith. Matthew is showing us, I think, in this part of the gospel, that Jesus is totally and utterly worth our faith in him. In the verses just before today's, and as you'll probably remember if you were here with us last week, and the weeks before maybe, we've had all sorts of different miracles and things that have happened. Just last week we were thinking about the synagogue leader, Jairus, coming to Jesus saying his daughter had died, but come and put your hand on her and she will live. We've heard about, well, first off, let's just stop there. I mean, we read it, we go quick, don't we? Goodness me. A man comes and says, just come and put your hand on her and she will live. Is that not faith? Is that not faith? And we can read it and glide over it so fast that we miss what's going on. We then had the bleeding woman who said to herself, "If I only touch his cloak, I'll be healed." Again, what faith that woman had. And Jesus explicitly did turn and say to her, "Your faith has healed you." So faith is really, really important and key. Today, we are walking along, as I say, and we see 2 blind men, and Jesus asks them a question because they are following him and they are asking Jesus for something. And Jesus says, "Do you believe that I am able to do this for you?" And they say, "Yes, Lord." And we also have a man who was demon-possessed and can't talk. So he can't answer Jesus verbally for the question, "Do you believe I am able to do this for you?" His friends are simply bringing him along, similar to what we heard the other week, the paralysed man who was lowered down through the roof. You know, it was a few weeks ago and maybe we've forgotten it again already. That's how our heads work sometimes, isn't it? We've been on a journey and we need to remember the journey that we're on. And he is this man who can't speak for himself, but his friends bring him along. And it reminds us of that one with the paralysed man. And can you remember what Jesus said then? Jesus saw there was faith, and he said to them that it was their faith that had made him well. The point is, in Matthew chapter 9, as we've journeyed through all these great things happening, we are seeing people drawing near to Jesus. And what response do we see as they draw near to Jesus? I think it's faith, faith, and more faith. I wonder what our response is as we draw to Jesus, as we gather here today. Faith is a response people had to Jesus, and it's faith in Jesus and who he is and what he is able to do. We all have faith in something. We have a choice what we put our faith in. Do we choose to follow Jesus and put our faith in him, as some of these people who we've been reading about have? Perhaps we feel we've only got a little bit of faith. I haven't got the faith to say, yes, I know, you've only got to come and put your hands on this person and they'll be healed. Or perhaps you're full in. Maybe we're on that riverbank, as Helen was saying. Or have we got a toe dipped in the water? Or are we fully in the river? Who and what are we putting our faith in? So the blind men in this passage, they're going along, and they don't actually say, you know, straight out, Lord, will you just heal me eyes? Will you just let me see? They say, have mercy on us, son of David. Well, you know, you might expect them to be saying, you know, just sort my eyes out. But they say, have mercy on us, son of David. Well, that's quite a big thing to say. You see, son of David is a huge Old Testament title that's loaded with all sorts of expectations and says a lot about who Jesus is. Back in the Old Testament, King David was king of the kingdom of Israel about 1,000 years before Jesus was born. And it's hard to overstate the hope and expectations that the people of Israel had in their king at that time. You see, the thing was then that if God's people had a godly king over them, then they enjoyed God's blessing. That was how it was all those years before in the Old Testament. If you had a good, godly king, life was good. And if you read through the Old Testament, you can follow some of what happens. The Old Testament tells us that the people of Israel were God's chosen people. And the king of Israel was God's chosen king. And God promised in the Old Testament that he was going to put everything right in the world through his chosen king. King with a capital K. And that is why when you read in the Old Testament, you can read many prophecies, people saying what's going to happen, what's coming. And there were so many prophecies concerning the Son of God. And if you read through books like Jeremiah and Isaiah, the prophets, you can read so many prophecies of what is to come, of who is to come. And they promise far more than just a stable political regime or, you know, just a little bit of peace at this point in time. They promise physical healings. They promise blind receiving sight, the deaf hearing, the lame walking, even crops and harvest in abundance. They promise so much. Because godly people under a godly king equals God's blessing, and not just to the few, but to everyone, for the whole world. You see, some people at that time thought they were the ones, the chosen ones, and the others weren't. But our God is a God of change, as we've heard. He comes with a different agenda, not the agenda that some people have. He comes to bless each and every one. And when we have our godly King in the right place in our lives, we will know his blessings. This term, Son of David, we might just read it and not understand it. We might read it and glide over it, but it carries huge expectations. It's been prophesied and talked about for thousands of years, waiting for generations. Those people who were there on that day would know what those prophecies were. They would know those scriptures. They would know. They were waiting for this coming king. And Jesus comes along. So Jesus, who is he? He's a descendant of David. He is coming amongst them, meeting them, the one who they've been waiting for, longing and looking for. But do they recognise him? Maybe some do, maybe some don't. In today's passage, it's quite ironic, isn't it, that it's the two blind men, the blind people, who actually see Jesus for who he is. They are the ones who declare, "You are the Son of David." How ironic that they are the ones who can't physically see him, yet they recognise who he is. The question the Gospels are always asking us when we read them, or the question we should be asking ourselves as we read them, is, do we see who Jesus is? It's obvious, even to these two blind men, who Jesus was there and is now. The Son of David, the promised Messiah. Do we see it as well today? And if we see who he is, do we believe who he is? Let's look at the question that Jesus asked these blind men in verse 28. It read, "Do you believe that I am able to do this?" Do you believe that I am able to do this? And they say, "Yes, Lord." Not, "Well, we're hoping so." They say, "Yes, Lord." These blind men, they have seen, as blind men can, not with their eyes, but they know in their hearts, in their minds, something has told them, this is the one who is coming. This is the one we've been waiting for. And they are following him, and they ask him to have mercy on them. They don't ask for the sight, they ask for mercy. They just want what God has to bless them with. They recognise, they believe, and Jesus shows them that he is worthy of the faith they put in him. Jesus, the promised one, the Messiah, who is the same yesterday, today and forever, just as he was worthy of their faith, he's worthy of our faith too today. In this passage, Matthew shows us another response, though, to Jesus. We also have the Pharisees, don't we, who are following along. And in verse 34, well, I had a sort of picture as I was reading what happens there as the Pharisees come and start saying their questions. I feel it's a bit like a smooth piece of wood, and you run your hand along the wood, and then suddenly you get to a splinter, and it goes, ooh, and it hurts, and it's a bit of a shock. And that's how I feel this part of the reading is. A bit like you're hitting that splinter, sticking up, going against the grain. Right up until now, we've seen this faith, faith, faith. Suddenly, we get this strange response from the Pharisees in verse 34. The Pharisees say, "He casts out demons by the prince of demons." They aren't seeing him as the Messiah, the promised one, the King of Kings. They are saying the total opposite. I don't know about you. When I read a passage, I read it through a few times, and I try and picture myself there in the scene, and I wonder if you can imagine yourself there. If you can imagine yourself walking along, following Jesus around as one of the crowd. You've seen all these miracles Jesus has been doing. He's restored the woman who'd been bleeding for 12 years. He's raised a dead girl to life. He's restored sight to blind people. You've seen him cast out the demon from the paralysed man who couldn't speak, so that he could speak and praise who God was. If you were there, I wonder, would you have responded as the blind man did? Or would we have responded as the Pharisees did? Would we see Jesus for who he is? Or would we say, well, no, he's casting out demons because would we believe he was working for the prince of demons, or the devil, as we might call him today? It's like saying those that have been healed, who Jesus has healed and restored, well, let's be honest, if it was the devil who'd done it, in my opinion, they'd be better off if they'd been left how they were. Because if we let the devil have the power over our lives, we're in big trouble. Jesus has been showing throughout the Gospel of Matthew who he is, and that he is totally worthy of their faith at that time and our faith today. By contrast, the Pharisees' attitude is worthy of judgment. Their attitude shows where their hearts are at. They are not in the same place as the disciples, as those who've been healed, those who are recognising Jesus as King of Kings and King of their lives. They know the implications of what it means, of Jesus being the Son of David. It means that he is in charge. He is number one and King of God's kingdom. They are looking at the same evidence, seeing the same things, hearing the same things as the blind men, as all of those who we've been reading about. In fact, let's be honest, they get a better sight of things than the blind men physically do. But you see, it isn't only about what we see with our eyes, it's about what we see in our hearts. They don't want the same conclusion. They don't want to take the same hopeful, humble position and actually submit to Jesus as the King. They don't want to ask him for mercy. In fact, they try to explain away the evidence that's in front of them, however stupid and absurd that might be. The thing about these Pharisees, though, is that they can show us what our human hearts can be like, what our human hearts are capable of when we come near to Jesus. God's word acting like a mirror and a sword, showing us what we can be like too. And it might not be something we like to hear or read, but it's for our own good. Right now, here today, how are our hearts? Do we see Jesus for who he is, as King of our lives? Or do we keep him in a little box? Right now, here today, are we moving towards Jesus in faith? Or are we moving away from him, turning our backs on him and rejecting him in areas of our life? The Pharisees show the human heart at the extreme of rejection, and we might not be quite as they are. They have been confronted with the right evidence. They've been following close to Jesus. They've had a good look. They've heard his teachings. They've seen the miracles firsthand for themselves. And yet, they turn their back on him. And yet, they will not acknowledge that he is the Son of David, the one that they've been waiting for. They prefer to say he is working for the devil than for God. What they show us is that deep down, humans don't reject God just because of a lack of evidence. They've had all the evidence they could have. But they still rejected him because their hearts desired something else. They didn't want to admit and submit themselves to Christ. We might think that's okay. We might even let God do something similar in our own hearts. I know I have at times. I've let God in so far. It's okay, God, in that bit. But I can't give you full control of this bit. I can't let go. How many of us have had a battle where we can't let go sometimes? We might think, well, I don't hate God, so I'm okay, aren't I? But I also don't recognise him as Lord of my life. And actually, in this part of my life, I won't go my own way. That isn't right either. It's simply not true. We might, the devil would love us to believe those lies, but they're not true. How about you and me today? Are we like the blind man or the Pharisees? God wants the best for us. He sent his son to die for us on the cross. He is the Son of David, the King of Kings, the one who can save us. God invites us to the way of grace. God's riches at Christ's expense. Christ was the one who died on the cross, who took our place so that we could know that forgiveness, that love, that mercy, and that joy. Yes, sometimes the way of grace requires a lot of us. It requires us to trust, to put our trust and our faith, to say, I'm no longer going that way and going the worldly way with the devil. I'm turning this way and I am putting my faith in Christ. How are each of us doing with that today? Because it isn't something we do once and carry on living the same way. It's something we have to do continually, trusting in God. Even in the darkness, even in life's difficult circumstances, even when it feels like our prayers are only hitting the ceiling here. How many of us have that feeling? I hope I'm not the only one. Even when we feel God's silent and we can't hear what he's saying. It means walking behind Jesus without being sure of where he's leading us sometimes when he wants us to step out in faith. Yeah, it's scary. It's very scary. I'm sure we've all got tales we can tell. Have you ever had that feeling? Lord, I can't see where I'm going. Lord, I don't know what I'm doing. Where are you, God? God's there. God's there. It's our hearts that need to recognise where he is. We have a choice. We can choose to focus on the fear, on the doubt, or we can choose to put our trust and our faith and say, okay, God, I'm just trusting you are with me here. I'm trusting that you will help me to walk in your grace, in your forgiveness, and in your love. God gives each of us an invite. He gives us a choice. We can let go of our fear and choose to hold on and follow him. Or we can give in to those fears. We can give in to those doubts. I know which choice is the one that we need to make. I know it because I know it for me. I know when I choose to follow God and I put my trust in him and I stay faithful, I know the blessings that I have had in my life. I also know times when I haven't done that. I have made the wrong choices and I still will, because in our humanness we will. And I know in those times, oh my goodness, what a struggle, how hard it is. And I'm just thankful that we have a God that allows us to come back again. I don't know where you are in your work and in your journey. I don't know if you are like those two men we've heard about today, or remember the one that needed the friends to bring them, because we don't do the journey alone. And sometimes we are called to help others with their journey. Where are you with your walk today? Are you able to say, Son of David, I am following you. I choose you as Lord of my life. I want you in my life as Lord of my heart. Are we dipping a toe? Are we on that bank, not quite sure whether we want to go in? You've already heard, as Helen said today, there are people around who you can ask, who you can talk to, who can pray with us. All of us need it at times on our journey. All of us need each other. God doesn't call us to be alone. He called us to be a family. So the invitation is for each of us today. Are there areas in our lives that we need to let go of? Things that we're holding on to because of fear? Are we struggling, feeling we're not feeling it at all? Or are we walking, knowing who he is and saying, I choose to put my trust in you? The risen Messiah, Jesus, Lord of my life. That's our choice today. I pray that you will make the right choice, and I pray that I will too.